Indeed, it is World Entrepreneurs Day. So, of course, let's focus. Let's take a little bit of a picture as to what exactly is going on in the world of entrepreneurship when it comes to the local front. Just exactly how do we compare to the rest of the world? We've continued to say that it should form a large part of South Africa's economy in order for us to actually grow. Consistently relying on formal employment is certainly not the way to go in order to move forward. But how too can we perhaps build and make sure that this sector of the industry continues to head higher? Here's what the picture looks like then when compared to the rest of the world. Yes, it is a busy graph, but we'll try to unpack it for you. South Africa, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Index, is ranked 57 out of 137 countries. What that means then is just that in comparison to countries like Botswana, who actually rank higher than us, the United States, the likes of Canada, of course, South Africa does have its own problems and issues. At 33%, which is our score then overall from the Global Entrepreneurship Index, it certainly does mean we have a whole lot of room to really get things better. And 33%, of course, out of 100 does tell you the story. In South Africa's context, it may be a pass mark, but it certainly isn't a pass mark by global standards at all. The individual score then does bring us to 60%. If you take a look at entrepreneurial qualities of the people in the ecosystem, we score 60% there, while institutionally we get a 57% score on there. So what are the best parts of our entrepreneurial journey as a country? The strongest areas is product innovation, coming in then at 69% there at number 10. That certainly means that is the best part. We are able to find the right products for the needs in this country, so we're able to change it and shift it along in order to fit the needs that we have. In terms of competition, that seems to be rife as well in South Africa, where a whole host of people are indeed entering the market. Our worst and weakest area is startup skills, the ability to kick things off from the ground and take them further. That is perhaps the worst element within South Africa. And the risk capital, which is something that people continue to talk about, that they don't have the capital or the amount necessary in order to kick off their business, is another factor within this. So this is what the picture looks like when compared to the rest of the world. This is what South Africa continues to struggle with according to the Global Entrepreneurship Index. And this tells you everything you need to know then about where we stand as a nation. Let's continue to get a clearer picture now, and we get to chat to a whole host of entrepreneurs throughout the day. And for now, I cross over to my colleague, Nzinga.
Thanks, Sarabile. Afrika Mkhangala is a farmer and entrepreneur who also works in the media and logistics spaces. He joins me in studio. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Let's start with the farming. How did you get into that, and describe what you do there?
Generally, I had a passion for it for a long time. I was always intrigued. You drive along. I'm from KZN. So on the drive to Gauteng, you'd always see a lot of land. And you see some production and then you want to be curious. So I started in the media space about 11 years ago. And as that grew and grew and I had slightly more resources, I then explored into going to agriculture. So that's how it basically came about.
What stage are you at now? Who do you supply and what challenges do you face in that industry?
I'm at almost semi-commercial. I think in probably about 5 to 7 years, we would have reached the targets that we want. We supply some of the spars. We do contract planting. So a lot of the guys that do, for instance, your salad and such mixes will give you a contract and say, please plant this for us, such a tonnage, such a specific type of crop and the like. General challenges for me is you never get a solid contract. It's just the nature of the business. You never get a solid contract. People tend to not trust you for some odd reason, even though they can see the produce. And what we've then been focusing a lot in order to balance the income that comes in is focusing a lot on consulting. So right now there's a big fad. It's a nice new thing. Everyone wants to get into agriculture, but it's not easy. So we then guide people and manage farms and the like for them.
Okay. There's many structural barriers in what you do, particularly as a black person and particularly as a younger black person. What advice would you give to someone who perhaps doesn't have a lot of startup capital, but wants to be in the field that you're in?
I mean, one of the important things is to understand that agriculture is so diverse, and you can play at different levels depending on what your pocket can allow. And the big mistake that we make is we all want to do the same thing. And we all think it's all limited to perhaps cash crops, which need a lot of space and need quite a bit of resources, or even livestock. But within livestock, for instance, if you were to do a piggery, you need much less space than for cattle. And somewhere in between there for sheep, you'd need, space to me is maybe you'd need 100 hectares for sheep, just as an example. Whereas if you really want to go at a high scale into cattle farming, you need 1,000+ hectares and the like. So it becomes, you need to understand where within the value chain. Also, the misconception is that what I do is a primary agricultural level. That's where I participate. That's where I'm comfortable. But a lot of people look into the secondary and the tertiary aspects of it. So what you see on the shelves, the spices and the like, and so on and so forth, and taking products, a primary product, and taking it into a secondary phase, or even making things like dairy products and the like. Those are all secondary and tertiary products. And a lot of people should rather look at that doesn't need a lot of land, but it's still within the agri-system.
Okay. We've spoken about entrepreneurship, and we've been playing some of the images of your work and the projects that you're involved in, the farms that you have behind us there. There's also a thing about image when it comes to entrepreneurship. Young people do want to get involved now more so in land, but there's also a sense of wanting things to happen very quickly and wanting final products versus understanding how long it takes. Perhaps you can speak to us around that.
It is a problem, and one of the organizations that I'm part of called YEA, the Youth Economic Alliance, we focus on the advancement of young SMMEs, and that's one of the big problems that you see. And if I can reflect perhaps and touch base on what your colleague spoke about, in taking an idea and making it something that can actually pay the bills and be operational is a big leap. From having the excitement of waking up and saying, I've got this brilliant idea, to actually doing it and doing it for quite a while consistently until you can secure jobs, secure yourself, and so on and so forth. But what you find right now is you're finding entrepreneurship is not supposed to be popular. It's not a populist way of living. It's hard. You wake up very early sometimes, you sleep very late, you grind, you get disappointed nearly all the time, you wait for a lot of payments that are always late. There's just a lot of structural problems that are there. But you need to know that in advance so that you are prepared for that war ahead. So if you know, it's not as easy. I won't, because I'm young, I'm black, I think I'm brilliant, I will suddenly get everything like that. That's not how it works. That's not how the world works in general. So you almost need to be realistic and prepare and do the hard work and say, okay, there are problems. We all know the problems of funding, for instance. So what will you do about it? Will you cry about it and wait for funding, or will you make alternatives and actually sell a product if possible?
Thanks so much for your time. On SABC News, Afrika Mkhangala, who's the president of Youth Economic Alliance, joining me in studio there. Now, the pedestrian economic environment presents a perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs to thrive. That's according to two entrepreneurial experts who share insights on how entrepreneurs can achieve this. Their advice comes as the world observes World Entrepreneurs Day today, the 21st of August. World Entrepreneurs Day creates awareness about entrepreneurship, innovation and leadership throughout the world. Economics reporter Diabo Seto filed this report.